You know, Tyler, I just feel like Pittsburgh is like one of the top-tier home teams.
You know, that's true. I mean, they just dominate the lower-seeded Eastern teams all the time at home. I mean, Toronto, New York Islanders,
Exactly.
domination.
Crazy. Welcome on, Doug Sparks.
Hello there, I'm Tyler Sawatzky.
Jeremy Myer.
We are here to bring you the fourth installment of Hockey Talks.
Yes, sir, we are.
And we're going to shift focus a little bit. We're not going to specifically mention a team or talk about a team in depth. We're going to talk about a hockey topic that's kind of been in debate for a while now.
It has been, and it's a really interesting topic and something that a lot of fans are passionate about, and we're hoping we'll get out to you fans with this episode.
Yeah, so what we're going to be talking about is kind of enforcers and fighting in hockey.
Yeah. How's the game shifting away?
Exactly. Well, I would just like to start by saying enforcers, the role of the enforcer, obviously just watch a hockey game from the 80s, early 90s to now, you can tell enforcers are not the same.
No, they're not. And the thing is, you look at the old enforcers, guys like Marty McSorley and guys like that who were really big guys who would just basically go on the ice to be goons.
Yeah. You don't really see that as much in today's NHL. I mean, arguably, you could say a couple of them are still out there just to be a goon. One could make a case about Sean Avery being just like that in his day.
I would say Matt Cook because I'm biased, but, you know.
It's an arguable case.
Yeah.
But I want to look at how the role and the definition of the enforcer is so different and how it's constantly changing.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one big thing is the skill set of the enforcer is certainly changing.
Exactly. That's my thought precisely. In later years, we would see the enforcers go out and be goons, but now I think we're going to kind of see the fade out of guys like Mike Brown and Colton Orr. You won't see as many types of those type of enforcers. You're going to see more type of guys who are enforcing but have a skill set and have hands. Guys like Milan Lucic, guys like Zach Kassian. I mean, you look at Milan Lucic, 6'4", 220 pounds.
Yeah, and he can score goals, and that's pretty impressive for a guy of that size.
Very impressive. I mean, through the first 6 games this year for the Boston Bruins as a skilled enforcer, he's already put up 2 goals, 2 assists. He's got 2 fights at least, 22 penalty minutes.
Yeah, and that's only in 6 games. I mean, imagine what this guy can do with a 48-game season, or even an 82-game season next year.
That's right.
Quite the impressive player.
And on the other spectrum, Zach Kassian, young guy for the Canucks right now, he leads the Canucks in scoring with 4 goals already.
Really impressive kid. I mean, guy acquired from Buffalo. He's really blossomed out there in Vancouver with those top-line minutes. Yeah,
he's now playing with the Sedins, trying to switch things up, and it's really working in his favor. He's helping kind of send a message, I guess, to the other teams. I remember 2 years ago in the Stanley Cup Finals between the Canucks and the Bruins, the 2 enforcers kind of were talking about, the Sedins were kind of, like, abused.
Yeah, they were, and that's the thing. Nowadays, you know, maybe the Canucks didn't really have anybody like a Milan Lucic. Back in the old days, they might have a Marty McSorley or Colton Orr or somebody like that. And instead, you know, Boston had guys like Milan Lucic and guys out there who were really just pushing the Sedins around and saying, you know, you're not anything.
Yeah, we dominate.
Yeah, exactly.
Zach Kassian, he is 6'3", 214 pounds, just slightly shorter and lighter than Milan Lucic. But you look at them as enforcers. They're guys who've already picked a few fights, but they're also got 4 points each already.
Yeah, and Zach Kassian 4 goals in only 6 games. I mean, quite the impressive start.
So I think that's why we see what we keep seeing with the enforcer. I think the definition of it's changed. It's not that the enforcer will go away, but you're going to see more skilled enforcers like Zach Kassian and Milan Lucic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the one thing is, too, the enforcer's always needed. I mean, guys were always going to be needed to protect the Sidney Crosbys of the world. You saw that with Pittsburgh when they didn't have a guy like that. Crosby kind of got abused and injured a lot because guys were able to take runs at him with nobody coming back and saying, hey, you're not allowed to touch my superstar.
And you will not have a Stanley Cup winning team without one guy that's going to protect your skilled players.
Yeah, and you look at the last couple of years, and a lot of these teams have had these types of players. Guys who are at least either fast or can get in on the forward check. Guys who can score goals, definitely mix it up in the trenches.
Yeah. So, moving on with this topic then, what do you see? Like we're looking at the changed role and definition of the enforcer. How does this look towards fighting in the future of the NHL?
I think fighting eventually will be obsolete. It's going to be one of those things that we look back on as a great thing in sports, but it's one of those things where a lot of the rule changes are happening. There's so much worry about concussions. Equipment's evolving every day. And eventually that skill set will be the only thing the enforcers have, and it's not going to be, protect me.
Right before the start of last year's season, they made a couple rule changes to headshots and to hits from behind.
Absolutely.
Early on, there were a lot of guys still making those hits, but then come the middle of the season, we saw a lot fewer penalty minutes coming towards hitting from behind and stuff like that. I mean, well, the minutes were there, but it wasn't happening to the extent that it was happening, say, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah. Because players are too, they're not scared, but they don't want to do it because they don't know what they're going to get suspended for or fined for.
And I mean, you talk about that too, guys back in the day, like Eric Lindros, so much talent was considered with Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky, and instead of blossoming into that type of a caliber player, he had concussions his whole career. Scott Stevens destroyed him, and these are hits that are sort of going away. We still see those big hits from guys like Nicholas Cronwall,
absolutely,
guys like that, but slowly shifting away, and that's definitely something of fighting sort of going away. So there maybe, you would think those hits would go up, but the fines and everything that you're talking about with the rule changes. I mean, you see guys like Rafi Torres for the hit last season on Marian Hossa. Done for until the playoffs if they make it.
And another thing I think that's a big problem with this is the inconsistency of what's getting called and what's not. I remember last year, first round, Nashville versus Detroit. Shea Weber takes Zetterberg's head and shoves it into the glass. What did he get? $2,500 fine. Pocket change.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing for me, too. It's got to be consistent with the refs. You've got to keep it consistent for all players. It's fine, of course you can find guys like Mike Brown and these nothing players to these certain teams and suspend them for 35 games, but unless you start suspending the Shea Webers and Chris Pongers of this league, you're never going to get a message across.
That's right, and that's kind of what's confusing a lot of players, and it's kind of why I think we're going to see a shift out of hockey. I mean, the shift of fighting out of hockey. I don't like that. I mean, I think that it adds a lot of element to the game.
I think it does add a place. It has its place in the game. It's definitely, for me, it is pro protecting the superstars. Like I have guys. I'm a Red Wings fan. Datsuk and Zetterberg. I don't want to see them getting hit hard every night, getting pushed around. I'm sure you see the same thing with your Vancouver Canucks.
Exactly.
All these teams that have these small, skilled players, we don't want to see these guys just getting pushed around because, hey, I'm bigger, so I can push
Absolutely. You talked with an example a few days ago, San Jose versus Colorado, and Brad Stewart just wrecked Gabriel Landeskog. It was a clean hit, no doubt. And Shane O'Brien then left his spot and on the defense and challenged Brad Stewart to a fight. That's the type of thing that we're still seeing, but we're seeing less of it.
We're definitely seeing a lot less of it, and I don't think it's necessarily because people are afraid to fight, but I think it's because they don't have the willingness to fight anymore. I mean, there's no real... You don't make your money that way in the league today. If you're not fast and you're not skilled out there, you're really becoming an obsolete player.
Exactly.
A lot of players are trying to shift their focus towards their skating ability. You can't... Like back in the day in the 80s, guys could be the worst skaters in the world, but they'd make the ice time because they were fighters. These days, you really don't see those players anymore. You got to be fast. You got to be skilled.
Absolutely, and that's why we see the enforcer role kind of switching towards Zach Kassian, Milan Lucic type of play.
Exactly.
You'll see a lot more of those guys. Maybe not to the level that they play because they're high caliber, modern enforcers. But you'll definitely see smaller packets of that for every team.
I would definitely think so, and I mean a lot of guys are focusing towards that, and a lot of teams are actually asking certain players to become that type of player. I think the New York Islanders and Kyle Okposo. He's a big body guy. A lot of teams are seeing all these guys that have size and want to come and play in the NHL. That is the role typically you're going to be asked to do, is going to be able to fight and be able to score goals at the same time.
Yeah. Last note on the fighting of the NHL. While we think it will become obsolete in the future for the NHL, that'd be a big blow to the fans. It definitely electrifies the crowd.
I would say so. I mean, I know when I've gone to games live myself, there's nothing like getting your feet off the ice like a fight. I mean, that is kind of a thing that it kind of unites the crowd. When your home team guy wins in a fight, that crowd just goes nuts.
Absolutely. So let us know what you think. What do you think about the future of fighting?
Yep.
So
down in the comment section below, we'll definitely be looking at them, and maybe even get a little debate going for you guys.
All right. Yeah. Well, that'll end that topic. I want to make a correction note.
Yeah.
On our last episode, I said Antti Niemi had a shutout. Yeah. He did not have a shutout. Thomas Greiss got the shutout.
Thomas Greiss.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he's apologizing to you, Thomas, if you watch the show.
Yeah.
And,
I've been pretty bothered by that ever since I was aware that I said Miami instead of Grice.
So that's a correction for you guys. Sorry about that. We try to keep our facts straight for you now.
Yeah.
Right.
My bad.
Yeah.
Anyways, last thing we want to talk about quickly. Let's take a quick look at the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators.
Yep. Montreal winners of 4 consecutive games, and now at 4-1, and the Ottawa Senators, of course, 4-1-1 to start their year.
That's right.
It's going to be an intense game tonight.
Yeah, they're playing tonight in Ottawa. Definitely will be a good game. We're seeing a completely different Montreal Canadiens squad than we saw last year.
Yeah, exactly. They're playing together as a team. They're more healthy than definitely they were last year or in seasons prior.
Yeah.
And I mean, you definitely look at this team as being something that maybe could challenge for something.
And I mean, you see, like, Andre Markov, he's come back and he's dangerous.
Yeah,
Rafael Diaz, he's dangerous.
Yeah.
Like,
if they add a few pieces, this is definitely a team that we could look forward to.
Yeah.
Tonight, they got to play Ottawa, so they're in tough tonight, especially in Ottawa. It's going to be a big game, especially too. That Ottawa-Montreal, that little French-Quebec and Ontario rivalry. It's going to be a great game tonight.
Yeah, I think Montreal is actually, like, they're in a great time right now, I think it is, to be a Montreal Canadiens fan, I would say so. It's just getting so competitive now between the Leafs, the Senators, and the Canadiens. Like, everything's unpredictable between them.
I mean, the league's unpredictable for this matter.
That's true.
You got to look at the Florida Panthers last year. They were making the playoffs for the first time, division champions.
Yeah.
This season they won 5. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's an evolving league, and it's an exciting time, I think, just to be a hockey fan.
Absolutely. So, if you haven't started, start now.
Yeah. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help you guys out and enjoy all the hockey you can't get.
That's right. And you can even join a fantasy league. Speaking of fantasy, we are going to be making a lot of notes on fantasy on our next episode.
Yeah, fantasy on this weekend. It'll be up at some point. It'll probably be late Saturday or early Sunday, like really early Sunday. But it's going to be up there for you guys. We're also going to be doing a team analysis, a little in-depth look.
This is going to be, we're going to take a team, one of the 30, probably at random, unless something just catches our eye more than another team. It'll be a more in-depth look than we put towards any team so far.
Absolutely.
So we'll get all that information about one team, kind of what we feel of it, and definitely some fantasy stuff going on there. That'll wrap up this episode of Hockey Talks, 4th installment. I'm Tyler Sawatzky with my partner, Jeremy Myer. Goodbye.